In a world drowning in digital noise, what if a single, obscure account held a secret so terrifying, so profound, it could change everything? What if a TikTok video posted by an account with 0 followers could tell you exactly when and where a disaster would strike? And what if, just 24 hours later, it came true? This is not a story of a hacker or a prankster. This is the story of a pattern that begins with a single cryptic post. A video showing a rusted, old bridge with a caption that read, "Bridge collapse in 24H." And exactly 1 day later, that bridge fell, plunging cars into the river below. The account vanished as quickly as it had appeared. But then it came back. A new account, a new video, a new disaster. It was always 24 hours. A chilling countdown to real-world tragedy. And with each new post, a small, terrified community of online users grew, sharing a secret that no one would believe. The question isn't if the account is real, because the evidence is undeniable. The real questions are, who is behind this? How is this even possible? And is the next video going to be about you? Today, we dive into the chilling digital rabbit hole of the TikTok account that predicts disasters. Our story begins in late 2021. The TikTok algorithm, a chaotic digital beast designed to push content to the masses, was still a mystery to most. But for one user, a young college student named Jake, it served up something truly bizarre. A video, seemingly random, appeared on his For You page. The account, handle @future_site, had a profile picture of a simple black circle. It had 0 followers, 0 likes, and 0 comments. The video itself was a short, grainy clip, just a few seconds of an old steel truss bridge, filmed from a strange low angle. The only text overlay was a single, cryptic sentence, "Bridge collapse in 24H." The location wasn't mentioned, but Jake recognized it. It was the I-35W bridge in Minneapolis, Minnesota. A bridge he drove over every single day. He thought it was a stupid prank, a piece of dark humor. He even shared it with his friends, laughing at the audacity of the post. But something about the video lingered, a feeling of wrongness. The footage wasn't polished. It was shaky like a handheld camera, and the angle was impossible, as if filmed by a drone flying illegally close to the support pillars. As a joke, Jake decided to check the account exactly 24 hours later. The account was gone, and then he saw the news. A headline flashed across his phone. I-35W bridge collapse in Minneapolis. Emergency services on site. Jake froze. The same bridge, the same time frame. He immediately went to the comments section of the news post, and what he saw there gave him a cold, hard shock. Dozens of people were frantically posting the exact same message. @future_site was right. He knew. How did he know? A small community of users spread across the world had seen the same video and were now sharing a collective digital dread. A few had screenshotted the video before the account was deleted, but no one could find the original creator. The theories began to fly. Some believed it was a hacker who had found a vulnerability in the bridge's digital monitoring system. Others suggested it was an insider, a whistleblower trying to warn the public without revealing their identity. The most chilling theory, however, came from a user named Sarah, who noted the impossibility of the drone footage. "That drone was flying in restricted airspace," she commented. "That footage shouldn't exist. It's almost like it wasn't filmed by a drone, but by a ghost." The account was gone, but the question remained. Was this a fluke, a terrible coincidence, or was it something far more sinister? The incident faded from the news cycle, dismissed as a strange coincidence. But for the small, nascent community of users who had seen the post, the memory lingered. They started an encrypted Discord server, a digital clubhouse where they could share their screenshots and theories, all trying to find a pattern. They named themselves the 24H Watchers. For weeks, nothing. The internet went on as usual. Then, about a month after the bridge collapse, it happened again. A video appeared on the For You page of several of the Watchers. The account was new, with a different handle at tomorrow_now. But the style was identical. 0 followers. A simple black circle for a profile picture. The video was a short, shaky clip filmed from the back of a moving car, driving through a long, dark tunnel. The tunnel walls were made of rough, unfinished stone. The caption was a simple, terrifying message: 24H until fire. The Watchers went into a panic. They immediately screenshotted the video, trying to identify the location. Using the specific style of the tunnel and the visible exit sign in the distance, a user named Maria, who was a civil engineer from Italy, identified it as the Traforo del Monte Bianco, a major tunnel connecting Italy and France. They tried everything. They posted the screenshots on Twitter, tagging police and government officials. They even tried to contact emergency services in Italy directly. But with no proof, no credible source, their frantic warnings were dismissed as a hoax. Exactly 24 hours later, the headlines broke. A massive fire had erupted in the Mont Blanc tunnel, caused by a fuel leak in a truck. Dozens were trapped, and the casualties were severe. The sheer speed of the fire was unbelievable. The Watchers' hearts sank. The account at tomorrow_now was, of course, deleted immediately after the disaster. The collective dread intensified. The Watchers, now a more organized community, began to pore over the 2 videos, searching for a pattern. They noticed a subtle distortion in both videos, a faint, almost imperceptible digital artifact that ran along the edges of the frames. It was like a signature, a visual fingerprint left by the mysterious creator. It was proof that the 2 accounts were connected. This wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't a series of isolated pranks. It was a pattern. The questions now were not just about how, but about why. Why were they posting these videos? And what were they trying to tell us? The mystery of the TikTok account, now known as the 24H Predictor, spawned a wave of theories. The internet, a chaotic hive mind of speculation, began to dissect every detail. The Watchers, with their archive of screenshots and data, were at the forefront of this digital investigation. The first and most logical theory was that the account was run by an insider. This person or group of people had privileged access to highly sensitive information. They knew about structural vulnerabilities in bridges, safety issues in tunnels, or were tracking specific data points that allowed them to predict when a disaster would reach its critical point. But this theory had a major flaw. How could they know the exact time? Predicting a collapse is one thing, but knowing it would happen at a specific hour, down to the minute, was impossible for any human. It would require a level of precision that no engineering or intelligence agency could ever possess. This led to the second theory, that the account was an advanced form of artificial intelligence. This AI would be a next-generation predictive model, constantly processing trillions of data points from around the world. It would analyze seismic data, weather patterns, traffic flow, satellite imagery, and even subtle shifts in human behavior to find an algorithm for chaos. The AI wouldn't just be predicting the most likely outcome, it would be calculating the most precise one. The videos, then, were not warnings from a human, but a simple output from a machine, a data point rendered into a visual form. A machine doesn't have emotions or morals. It just presents the information. This theory was chilling, as it suggested that we were already living in a world where AI could see our future, and there was nothing we could do to stop it. The third theory suggested a more sinister human origin, a government or corporate experiment. Perhaps a highly classified project had developed a technology to predict large-scale events, and this TikTok account was a way to test its accuracy. The accounts were deleted to cover their tracks, and the disasters were allowed to happen because they were considered acceptable losses in a massive inhuman experiment. The account's profile pictures of simple black circles were seen as a logo, a branding of the mysterious, unknown entity. This theory was terrifying because it removed the possibility of a warning altogether. The posts weren't for us. They were for the people running the test. We were just part of the data. The third theory suggested a more sinister human origin, a government or corporate experiment. Perhaps a highly classified project had developed a technology to predict large-scale events, and this TikTok account was a way to test its accuracy. The accounts were deleted to cover their tracks, and the disasters were allowed to happen because they were considered acceptable losses in a massive inhuman experiment. The account's profile pictures of simple black circles were seen as a logo, a branding of the mysterious, unknown entity. This theory was terrifying because it removed the possibility of a warning altogether. The posts weren't for us. They were for the people running the test. We were just part of the data. And then there was the most terrifying theory of all, a paranormal explanation. The watchers noticed that the videos always had a faint, almost subliminal sound, a very low-frequency hum that was only audible on certain speakers. It sounded like a recording of something very old. Some users theorized that the account was being run not by a person or an AI, but by an entity that exists outside of our normal timeline, a being that sees all of time simultaneously. The videos were not predictions, but historical records from a time that had not yet come to pass for us. The accounts were deleted because the entity was not bound by our laws of time and space, simply moving in and out of our reality as it saw fit. It wasn't trying to help us. It was just an observer, an alien tourist posting photos of our future for its own unknown purpose. The 24H wasn't a countdown. It was a simple matter-of-fact label. For nearly 8 months, the account remained dormant. The watchers continued to archive every piece of data, every screenshot, waiting for the inevitable. The community had grown from a handful of people to thousands, all sharing the same digital dread. The anticipation was palpable. They weren't just waiting for a new video, they were waiting for a new tragedy. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, a video appeared. The account handle was new once again at the _unseen_path. The profile picture was the same black circle, but this video was different. It wasn't a specific location. It was a shaky, low-resolution clip of the New York City skyline. The iconic silhouette of Manhattan against a hazy, gray sky. The caption was just 3 words: New York, 24H. The watchers went into a full-blown panic. A city of millions. This wasn't a bridge or a tunnel. This was a metropolis. The stakes were astronomical. Within minutes, screenshots of the video were all over Twitter, Reddit, and every major news outlet. The story of the 24H predictor was no longer a fringe online conspiracy. It was a mainstream news event. Police departments in New York, the FBI, and government officials all commented, urging calm but secretly launching investigations. They tried to find the source of the video to locate the creator, but of course, the account was gone within an hour. They had nothing to go on. Nothing but a shaky video and a terrifying timer. The next 24 hours were a living nightmare for New York City. Panic and fear gripped the city. Rumors of bombs, gas leaks, and terrorist attacks ran rampant. People fled the city in droves, creating a logistical chaos that no one could have predicted. The police were on high alert, searching for any signs of a threat, but they came up with nothing. The media covered every second, every false alarm, their cameras waiting for a disaster that never came. 24 hours passed. Nothing happened. The city was still standing. A massive sigh of relief was heard around the world. And then the backlash began. The news media labeled the incident a hoax, a cruel prank. The watchers were ridiculed, called doomsday prophets and conspiracy theorists. The internet mocked the entire incident. The community of watchers, once united in their terror, was now split. Some believed the account had finally gotten it wrong. Others, more hopefully, believed that the global attention had somehow averted the disaster, that the collective fear and readiness had changed the future, that they had won. But 48 hours after the video first appeared, a massive gas leak in a residential building in the Lower East Side of Manhattan led to a devastating explosion. Dozens were injured, many severely. It wasn't a major citywide disaster, but it was a tragedy. It was a disaster. The watchers, now small in number and heartbroken, realized the truth. The account hadn't gotten it wrong. They had simply been off by a day. The 24H wasn't a hard limit. It was an approximation. The future was not set in stone, but it was coming. The disaster was inevitable, and they had just been given a warning that wasn't quite perfect. The community realized they hadn't changed the future. They had just delayed the inevitable, and that was a terrifying realization. It has been over a year since the New York incident. The community of watchers has mostly disbanded, the trauma and ridicule too much to bear. The account has not posted since. The silence has been more terrifying than any post could have been. The world has returned to a fragile state of normalcy, with the memory of the 24H predictor fading into the background of 1,000 other online myths. But a few of the original watchers have never stopped looking. They check their For You pages every day just in case. Recently, a new video appeared. It was posted by a new account with a new handle at the _unfolding_future. The profile picture was the same simple black circle. This time, there was no caption, no time limit, no specific location. The video was a single static shot of an old abandoned house. It was a short clip, just 5 seconds long, showing a rusted front gate and a dark, boarded-up window. There was no sound. But in the background, if you looked very, very closely, you could see a faint shadow moving in one of the windows, as if someone was watching from inside. And the only thing the video had was a single, cryptic hashtag. Hashtag, your city name. Was it a coincidence? Was it a joke? Or was it a new warning? A new message, but this time, it's not a citywide disaster. It's something smaller, something more personal. A tragedy in a single old house. And if you're watching this video right now, you may want to check your For You page. You may want to look up that hashtag, because the question isn't if the next video will appear. The question is, what will it be about? And for who? The story of the TikTok account is a perfect nightmare for the modern age. It takes our most trusted and ubiquitous technology, and it turns it into a tool for terror. It uses an algorithm designed to connect us and entertain us, to deliver a message of inevitable doom. It's not a story about a ghost in a house or a monster under the bed. It's about a monster that lives in your phone, in your pocket, in the digital stream that you consume every single day. A monster that doesn't want to jump out and scare you. A monster that wants to tell you a story about your future. The truth is, we may never know who or what is behind this account. It could be an AI, a time traveler, or some kind of digital entity. But the fact remains that the videos were real. The disasters were real. And the fear was real. The posts were not for the authorities. They were not for the governments. They were for us. A select few of us who happened to stumble upon them. A glimpse into a future that is already set in motion. So, the next time you open your TikTok feed, scrolling through endless videos of dance challenges and funny cats, just remember this story. Remember the I-35W bridge. Remember the Mont Blanc tunnel. Remember New York. And remember the last video. The one with the abandoned house and the shadow in the window. The one with a hashtag that might be a little too close to home. Because the algorithm is always watching. And it knows where you live. And it's always just a little too early.